Hey everyone, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I'm your host, G1. As always, I hope you are having a good week. Busy one for me, but I did find what I think will be an interesting topic for the show this week, and maybe next week as well. I'm thinking about doing a two-parter here to kind of dive a little deeper into this topic. So, as many of you may or may not know, I watch a lot of YouTube and Rumble videos on various topics. It's just how I get my entertainment. I tend to not watch really any traditional TV. Occasionally, I will enjoy some sports ball or watch a news program or two, and sometimes I'll stream a movie, or I may watch a show every once in a while if it catches my fancy. But mostly, on a nightly basis, I am, well, here lately I've been working on homework and things until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. But then I'll watch some content that is created by other people like myself. It's just generally better, more interesting, more niche, honestly, and it doesn't have the forced DEI requirements and the horrible plot holes and horrible writing. But anyway, watching YouTube, you will no doubt see a good many ads that come across your screen while you're watching. And right now, being election season, you're seeing a ton of political ads, and mostly right now, I'm seeing Kamala Harris ads. Something that I have noticed is that I don't see as many Trump ads as I do Kamala ads, which is not really shocking. But I do see Trump ads. I see them more this time around than I did in 2020 on the platforms that I'm on. I assume it's related to who is spending the money to run the ads and where they choose to do so, which kind of in and of itself is strange. See, I see the pro-Trump ads in places where there's a lot of pro-Trump viewers, and probably the same for Kamala ads. And when I do watch, for example, a game or something, baseball, football, whatever, I'll see Kamala ads. And what it means is that they're spending their money where the people who are most likely to vote for them already are. I find that kind of strange. It kind of looks to me like that there's just a process that they're going through. It's checking boxes and spending the money. But anyway, I see a lot more ads here lately from Kamala, and they're just filled with outright lies. They're kind of frustrating. The fact that her campaign spouts this and the NPCs keep spouting it, this is just a glaring reminder of that old adage that if you repeat a lie long enough, people think it's the truth. At least that's what they think it is. So I wanted to dig into this a little bit because I keep seeing some outlandish claims being branded about one particular plan that is being tied to Donald Trump, and that being Project 2025. So what is it, and why do the left keep lying about it and trying to make it seem like it's Trump's platform? Well, that's what we're going to get into today. So what is Project 2025? It is a policy document that was put together by the Heritage Foundation, who are a conservative think tank, if you don't know who they are. And they've been around Washington for a very, very long time. I've heard of their things and read some of their positions going back decades. This is not some new up-and-coming or fringe or radical group. Of course, the left thinks it's a radical group, but in fact, the Heritage Foundation is kind of a traditional conservative insider group to some extent. They're basically advocating for a return to like 1982, and nothing so far out of line with the mainstream that it should be shocking to anyone. If you were to detail these positions and sum them up for your average rural voter, they would find nothing outlandish or outrageous or crazy about it at all. Of course, 1982 was back when there were adults still in charge of America. It was not perfect by any stretch, and of course the deep state already existed, but socially and economically the argument could be made that we were far better off back then. And the bottom line is that this is not radical stuff here. Nothing they are advocating for in this policy document screams, fascist Trump, or anything even remotely close to that. It's insane, the level of lies that are being put out there. The document is called The Mandate for Leadership, and this is just the latest version of it. This is something the Heritage Foundation has put out many, many times over the years. Every time they want to lay out a public position, I guess, statement on how a conservative administration should conduct itself and focus its efforts in its next 4-year term, I guess, they published this document. And this version was originally published in 2022, or at least conceived in 2022. So it predates even Trump announcing his candidacy. And the document is free to download from their Project 2025 website. It's pretty massive. It's about 920 pages. There's a lot of footnotes in each section that detail their sources. And it essentially goes through each of the executive branch offices and how Heritage believes the next conservative administration should reform and overhaul those offices. How the next conservative administration should refocus the office and clean it up pursuant to conservative principles and agenda. Again, this is nothing crazy. This is exactly the kind of document that leftists and progressive groups publish all the time, and no one bats an eye at them. But for some reason, the left has gone completely off the chain when anyone mentions Project 2025. I even have people that I know who are pro-Trump, and they say, "Oh no, that Trump, that's not his document. That's some other group's document." They don't know where it comes from. They don't know the source of it, and they're kind of buying into the hype that the left is putting out there about this being some kind of radical document, and saying, "Oh well, whatever it says, Trump's not for that. It's not Trump's plan. It's a conservative group's plan, and he shouldn't be tied to it." Well, honestly, like I said, there's nothing crazy in here. They're screaming that Trump wants to cut Medicare, ban abortions, ban in vitro fertilization, pack the courts, follow this radical conservative agenda called Project 2025. And the problem is it's all a complete lie. First off, as I said, this is not Trump's plan. This is from the Heritage Foundation, who are not affiliated with a campaign. Now, it's true that Trump's campaign has followed the advice of the Heritage Foundation before, when he was in office before and when he's been campaigning. But this is not his administration or his campaign that has put this together. Second, none of the things that they're mentioning are even in the document. The abortion stuff, there's some abortion stuff in the document. Again, this is a free download. You can go get it and read it for yourself. There's nothing in the entire 920 pages about IVF, in vitro fertilization. It's not mentioned at all. I don't know where that nonsense came from that they try that they're lying about. There's nothing in the document about cutting Medicare or Medicaid. There's reform. There's talks about how to fix those things, those plans and those programs, but there's nothing about cutting them. There's nothing in the document about packing the court. There's talks about how to fix the Department of Justice. Nothing about packing courts. And there really is no call to outright ban abortions either. But to be fair, like I said, there is a number of items related to abortion that are in there. But I'll get to those in just a minute, because it's not really radical, honestly. So this is all lies as usual. There's nothing in the document about the fair tax that I could find in there, which is the plan to, and I haven't looked terribly deeply for that yet. I will get to that. I will go through the document a little bit more closely and detail that in the next episode. But fair tax is just the plan to replace the income tax with a national retail sales tax. And I keep seeing this ad saying that Trump is, wanting to put in a national sales tax, which will cost families extra money. And I assume that they mean that he's supporting the fair tax, which is honestly awesome. This is exactly what we need in this country. I've been a supporter of it for almost 20 years. The lie that it will cost average Americans $4,000 per year is a lie of omission, by the way. The average American already pays more than $4,000 in taxes a year anyway, and the fair tax replaces almost all of those. So it's a net reduction when you account for the refunds that come with the fair tax plan. But, what do you expect from these politicians, these communists? It's fear-mongering and trash information. So why does the left hate this plan so much? Why do they, like I said, they hate the Heritage Foundation to some extent. And I don't know how real all of that is, in part because this is, we know there's a game that's played on us, but let's assume that the positions are valid for the sake of argument. It's clear that the fear tactics are being employed on the NPCs, and they assume that it will gain traction when those NPCs go out and spread it to the ill-informed headline readers. And I'm sure that they will make some hay here, but I really think people are seeing through the lies for the most part. They're probably tired of seeing the video ads, the commercials, where it's Kamala Harris says this and Trump says that and he's bad, Orange Man bad. People get tired of those, even, the normies, they get tired of those kind of ads. But why all the hate? Well, it's that abortion thing that I mentioned. We all know that the left is absolutely obsessed with killing babies. They just can't envision a world where women can't freely sleep with people thousands of times and have no concern for the consequences. The whole economy is real. Any curtailing of the abortion industry is seen as the most egregious affront to humanity that a progressive could ever endure. And so there can be no curtailment, no regulation, no guardrails, no guidance, no place where the unrestricted right to abortion, the so-called right to abortion, exists. They cannot have any restriction at all. No control of money, nothing. Well, Project 2025 does put some of that in place. It calls to enforce the ban on federal funds for travel to obtain abortions. This is already against the law, but the Biden administration has been ignoring it. The Hyde Amendment prohibits the use of federal funds for abortion services. And the Biden DOJ issued an opinion that paying to travel to get an abortion is not the same as paying for the abortion. So it's totally all good, a legal use of the funds, which is a distinction without a difference. And it's bullshit, but this is what we have to deal with in the current timeline. They call for the ending of taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood. And then this is pretty interesting. So from 2020 to 2021, that year, Planned Parenthood reported more than $133 million in excess revenue. Now, they're a nonprofit, so it's just called excess revenue. And to corporations, that's called a profit. And more than $2.1 billion in net assets. And during that same year, Planned Parenthood reports that its affiliates received more than $633 million in government funding and $579 million in private contributions. So $630 million taxpayer funds went to fund Planned Parenthood, and they banked $133 million of that as profit. Now, this is from the Project 2025 document. I quoted it from that, and they footnote those numbers, so you can go check their sources. I don't have any reason to doubt those numbers. It looks very much like it's from their tax filings for Planned Parenthood, so I don't have any reason to doubt it. But you can check that out on yourself for yourself. So for all the whining and baying that the progressives do about corporations making record profits, they don't have any issue with Planned Parenthood making $133 million in profit and taking in that $600 million in taxpayer funds. Yeah, that needs to stop. Okay, if the demand is there as you claim it is, Planned Parenthood, if oh my gosh, we have to give these services to women. We don't just do abortions. We have to do all this health services for women. Well, then if the demand is there, you're clearly getting contributions from private sources, $579 million. If the demand is there and you're a nonprofit, you can exist on private funding. There are some additional abortion positions that are detailed in the section on health and human services that is in the document. But again, there's nothing really radical here. It's about federal funding. It's about how the government forces insurance companies, for example, to pay for abortion services. It's about the so-called morning after pill and federal funding for that. There's nothing here about banning abortions or banning contraception. It's more about the ban or controlling the funds that taxpayer funds that go to pay for these things that shouldn't be there. People who are against these services, against these things, should not have their taxpayer money going to fund them. It's not a ban. The call for bans are just on those funding, it's just like I said, it's not the same thing at all. In this document, there are positions about vaccines, and I will let you go read those to avoid the censor bots from pulling the video. They're good positions, in my opinion. There are positions about the gender care and federal funding for that. Again, nothing about banning it. It's just banning federal funding, which in reality, we all know gets rid of that kind of nonsense because no state government outside of just the most leftist like California and New York are going to pay for that kind of crap with state funds. They're not going to pay for that. They want federal dollars to pay for it. And states that don't want it at all, the feds force them to take it, force them to do. In order to get any federal funding, you have to accept the whole program. And so conservative states that don't want that kind of indoctrination being fed to their children don't want to use the funds for that. But, oh, nope, sorry, you got to. So it's about taking that away. You won't be forced to do this to get federal funds for education. It's very logical and responsible stuff that is being proposed here. It's kind of resetting the balance. And, of course, that just drives the commies out of their minds. This is how their agenda gets in place. They can't get people to think this way naturally. It has to be taught. It has to be ingrained into young people's minds to think this way. So, their whole agenda is about removing the societal guardrails. So they have to control the education of children and young people. They have to control the messaging from all of these federal offices and all these agencies. All of the educational material has to drive this message. So it has to have federal funding, which means taxpayer funding, because there are not enough hardcore leftists that are willing to pay to fund this stuff out of their pockets. No. They want to force you, at the threat of prosecution, to pay for this. You get the privilege of paying for the indoctrination of your children and grandchildren to hate you and everything that you stand for, to hate their own people and their own history and everything that is fine and good about this country and their heritage. So go download the document from Project 2025 and give it a read. I will be hitting some of the other items next week on the show. I'll try to get into some of the stuff about DOJ and FBI, because I think those are pretty critical. I will mention here, before I go, I did not see any mention about the ATF in there, and getting rid of the ATF. So it can't be that radical if it's not talking about getting rid of the ATF. So just to throw that out there, but give you something to look forward to next week. Spread the information to everyone that you know to look for themselves. Don't accept the controlled media summary and interpretations of the document. Go read it yourself. It is long, but you can skim through it. You can, just pick out the highlights, pick out the things that you want to investigate. Again, it's just not that. It's not the bugbear that they have made it out to be. It's actually good stuff, and I don't have a problem with it from what I've seen so far. And there may be some things in there that I have a quibble with, that we could do without, or I might say doesn't go far enough. But overall, I think it's a good place to start. I think it's a good policy document. Anyway, that is all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab, Nice Crew Digital, and the Cold Fury blog, and I will see you on the next episode.